Hello, and welcome to Reroll First Impressions. My name is Angus Morrison, and I review games twice. This is actually the last First Impressions video before the channel's first reroll, which will be a second look at DMC Devil May Cry on the 26th. I'll be looking back at that peculiar reaction by fans of the previous series, trying to get to grips with how it was received in the wider press, and its longevity and its future. In this video, I'll be taking a first look at Crysis 3, developed by Crytek, published by EA, and released in the UK far too late. It came out in the US on the 19th of February, Australia and the EU, of which I seem to recall the UK being a part, on the 21st, and the UK on the 22nd. It was developed in Germany and the UK. How can we get it last? Well, actually no, the only place that has it worse is Japan, where it comes out on the 7th of March. And they speak another bloody language! Every game is distributed digitally these days, and Crysis 3 is on Origin, EA's own platform. Given such powerful tools, I'd expect to see publishers striving for global release dates. These staggered releases that publishers keep lumping on us are just arbitrarily unfair. Still, on the plus side, I've only generated 5 pages of notes while playing Crysis 3 compared to the 7 that Dead Space 3 produced, so that's an indicator that it might have fared somewhat better. Onwards! First off, Crysis 3 is the most visually impressive game I have ever played. My god, these videos cannot compare to actually being there and experiencing the world around you. Crysis 2, being designed with the console in mind, scaled things back a bit. But I've been replaying the original Crysis in the run-up to this review, and that's still stunning at 5 years old. The third installment takes things to a new level. The world feels so real and so alive that I could not just stop looking at it. Throughout the video clips I patched together, you'll notice a lot of moments when I get distracted and just stare about the place. It's captivating. And it's not just about graphical fidelity, although obviously that's a big part. The world is busy. It's packed with hundreds and hundreds of what I'm going to term flavor assets, like litter, branches, grass, things that you'd never notice on their own, but present in such incredible density that your virtual environments feel lived in, convincing. More impressive still is the fact that the frame rate remains steady throughout. I've played for somewhere around 10 hours so far, and I don't recall any significant frame rate drops, whether in dense grass, explosive firefights or breakneck vehicle sections. Given their long experiences with computer melting specs, it's not surprising that Crytek have really nailed their optimization. This isn't to guarantee that your frame rate will be high, of course. After complaints that Crysis 2 didn't tax the gaming rigs enough, Crytek have come back fighting. This is the first game I found that actually outmuscles my rig, and that makes me absurdly happy. I'm running an i5 3570K at 3.4 GHz, 16 GB of DDR3, and a 670 GTX with 2 GB of GDDR5. And it just misses out on being able to cope with max settings. In the end, I had to reduce shadows from very high to high and drop down the anti-aliasing to keep the frame rate above 30. I would not be surprised to see Crysis 3 become the new benchmarking tool of choice. And really, there seems little point in showing off the graphics menu, but here it is anyway. It has everything you could wish for as a PC gamer, apart from perhaps an FOV slider, which can be edited from the console. Though I'm genuinely not sure why FOV controls have become such a big thing when discussing graphics options. And this is a serious question. Does anyone actually know why this is? Why do people demand that each degree of game they can see at any one time be under their direct control? Surely that's a developer's decision. If you have any notion as to the reasoning behind it, please do leave a comment below, because to me it seems that people complaining about absent FOV sliders are just jumping on a very peculiar bandwagon and no one quite knows where it's going. Crytek being Crytek, the scripted cutscenes are perfectly staged to show off the brute force of CryEngine 3. All of the visual detail that brings the world to life is compounded in the moments when Crytek takes command of the camera. There are a few games recently that haven't made colossal strides with facial animation, but this just takes the biscuit to the point where I'm gonna shut up and let you watch this. Seriously, switch to 1080p, full screen this bad boy, and watch.
Now we've been here. The balance of asymmetrical warfare favors us less every day. This was meant to be our Normandy, but alas, here we are in hiding. We nibble here, we nibble there, but we can't turn the tide, we can't build momentum. We need a game changer. Major Lawrence Barnes, the Prophet, Karl Ernst Rasch, at your service.
Rasch, I remember you.
Hold still, please. Recombinant DNA. Human. Ceph. Synthetic. Incredible.
I can't get a read on you.
Oh, come now, Lawrence. What did you expect? I designed your suit, my dear fellow. Of course, it can't get a read on me.
The fact that the HUD elements are contiguous between gameplay and cinematic is really nice. The action flows from combat to cutscene without dropping a beat. There are no quick time events either, which is great, because in this sort of long, story-driven cutscene, they have no business being present. If you need to deliver a long piece of plot dialogue without the player's interference, if that needs to happen to tell the story, you do it, and you do it with confidence. As I've said before, and will say again, requiring predefined button presses to move through your cinematic set piece comes across like a reluctant nod to interactivity. It's like thinking, oh look, we have a player, best give them something to press before their massive ADHD gets the better of them. But speaking of button pressing, let's talk gameplay. There have been grumblings floating about the internet in connection with the word linearity, and yes, Crysis 3's gameplay is exclusively linear. But linear, guided, or entirely open world doesn't matter so long as it's fun. And Crysis 3 is the most fun I've had in an FPS for a very long time. In addition to the wonderful setting, combat is fast, changeable and challenging. You fight both human soldiers and a variety of Ceph creatures that attack in very different ways, and you see transitions from the business-like dispatch of sentries in the railway shed to a panicked flight from unseen stalkers in moments. The guns scattered around the levels are yours to customize on the fly, and you can swap between silent semi-automatics, explosive arrowheads and alien miniguns without dropping a beat. The quest for variety is admittedly hampered by the fact that multiple enemy types are rarely found in conjunction, so for each particular fight your tactics remain mostly unchanged. But the real star of the show is of course the nanosuit, adding armor and stealth along with inbuilt speed and strength to your abilities. These are rarely more than a button press away and ensure that combat is characterized by its dynamism. Linear it may be, but this is a far cry from the static shooting galleries to which we've become accustomed. I should mention here that it is actually possible to upgrade the nanosuit in RPG fashion using kits found about the world, but I realised that once I'd unlocked the 4 things I wanted in the opening minutes, there was very little reason to open the menu again, let alone spend time hunting for materials. Whether you make much use of this feature will depend on just how varied your playstyle is. The enemy AI is pretty savvy, certainly much more so than in the first Crysis, and enemies such as the Stalkers will hide, jump and hunt in an unnervingly organic way. Aliens could have learned a lot from them. Overall, however, the AI is probably a little too clever. For example, human enemies react to hacked turrets faster than any real person could, and they land grenades with alarming accuracy. I also found myself hit with a barrage of enemy fire the instant I dropped my cloak, regardless of concealment by the undergrowth. They'd often spot me long before I saw them too, though given the demand this creates for prior reconnaissance with the binoculars, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. What is annoying is the tendency for firing upon one Ceph troop to bring the level's entire complement of enemies down on you. One mission in particular left me no choice but to crouch in a corner, unleashing a barrage of machine gun fire in the hope that that would connect with the enemies I couldn't yet see. Now this was on veteran difficulty, which is the 3rd out of 5 settings available, so it's possible that the enemies are a little less on the ball for the easier modes. What is nice is having every difficulty unlocked from the outset rather than artificially extending the game's lifespan by demanding a playthrough on normal first. If your masochistic tendencies are reflected in your gaming, the option is there from the get-go. On the rare occasions when Crysis 3 becomes frustrating, it's as a result of the dodgy checkpointing and vague instruction. It's quite possible to clear an area of hostile forces only to plummet off a cliff face which looked deceptively like the way forward. It rather precludes thinking for yourself and problem solving when a restart is the immediate result of a misstep. Crysis 3, as you'll likely know from the immensely popular open beta, also boasts a dedicated multiplayer component consisting of deathmatch, spears or conquest, extraction, which is similar to an asymmetrical capture the flag, and hunter game modes, which I've included some clips of here. And it's good. I mean, what you think of the multiplayer is really going to depend on why you're playing Crysis. Personally, I feel the single player outshines anything else the game has to offer. And while the multiplayer was a very fun distraction, it's not something that I personally invest much time in. But there are those who will buy Crysis specifically for the multiplayer, and for those people I think it's a very accomplished product. Its mechanics appear solid and the level system provides unlocks to aspire to. I mean, it's not a particularly unique experience, but novel thrills can be found in game modes such as Hunter. One person starts as the cloaked super soldier and must convert the human troops to hunters within the time limit using only the recurve bow. Playing as a grunt is a terrifying experience. So I don't have much ground on which to criticise the multiplayer without a more in-depth look, which will undoubtedly feature in the Crysis 3 reroll. For now, it's safe to say that if you found enjoyment in online FPS's past, there's little reason not to give it a try. The real issue that I'd like to address in Crysis 3 is in the writing. It's not so much the story itself, which follows the standard last hope for humanity, repel the alien invasion narrative, but the way in which it's delivered. Because there's no subtlety in the delivery of plot points. Every major event is accompanied by the characters going, "Look, look, this is important. Look at how important this plot point is." Or, and without giving too much away, "Remember that thing that happened in the past? Yeah, remember that? Well, look how important it is." Each exposition goes just that one step beyond artful storytelling towards patronizing explanation. Plot revelations should reward those who have been paying attention, who have engaged with the story actively and picked up on every detail. Crysis 3 is rich with text and audio logs that provide detailed lore and story insight, so the groundwork is already there for the player to be allowed to unravel some of the story on their own. Even the throwaway one-liners, without which no action game would be complete, require an explanation to be tacked on just in case anyone missed the joke. This isn't limited to Crysis, of course. Games have made great strides in both scripting and acting in the past 5 years, but in a bid to cram sweeping stories and character development into a 10-hour window, subtle themes often end up mistreated. Graphics can only carry us so far in terms of realism, and I would really like to see the quality of writing, regardless of its content, become an area of concerted focus within gaming. Overall, however, Crysis 3 is a riotously fun and fluid shooter which boasts the best graphics I have ever laid eyes upon. At the very least, you should come to witness Crytek doing what Crytek do best. It is let down by some ham-fisted writing, some of the customization is arguably unnecessary, and the checkpointing might often be described as unforgiving, especially in the face of ferocious enemy AI. But these problems are widespread in gaming, and while this certainly doesn't excuse its flaws, it will be hard to find better elsewhere. A refreshing antidote to the on-rails FPS, Crysis 3 has my full recommendation. I shall be back next time with a second look at Devil May Cry, which should be contentious to say the least. My first impressions of Dead Space 3 is up on my channel now if you haven't had a look already, and please do like, subscribe and share this video, or leave a comment if you feel like a chat, or correcting me ruthlessly. Thank you for watching.